All right, the TR100 from Thermaltake. I feel like they've learned a lot from the mistakes of other companies when it comes to ITX enclosures. This is not exactly petite ITX case, but it's not a gigantic mid-tower either. And you can do a lot with this one. Plus, all the fun colors are actually interesting and fun, like the matcha green, the hydrangea blue, hydrangea? I don't think I know how to say that word.
Hydrangea.
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 Hydrangea. So, let's review, shall we? Now, the unboxing experience is pretty straightforward. It is single boxed. We do have the display of the model name that you have on there, and nothing arrived damaged. The cases are fairly light, and you are greeted with those beautiful colors out of the box, and you can start working in them right away. I am pleasantly surprised there's no rattling on the frame level. The I/O cables on the inside move, but that's about it. I think Thermaltake's decision to include these fun colors is actually pretty clever. Like the matcha green looks absolutely gorgeous with the contrasting black frame. And there's some complexity happening on the front panel, plus the ventilation all around. And it's not just a boring standard ITX rectangle. There's some character to the TR100, and I normally don't like black cases, but I think they really nailed it out of the park over here. All colors look awesome, and even though the hydrangea blue is not my cup of tea, it is still so nice to have color options, especially in the ITX space. Now for real, this was one of the more pleasant case experiences in the ITX space that I've had in a while. From a point of view of like build quality, the user experience in the assembly department, and hardware compatibility, Thermaltake, you done good. Although there's just this one tiny thing that pisses me off completely. More on that later. Now let me show you all the things they got right with the exterior and the interior. First of all, it is a completely toolless disassembly of your exterior panels. We have captive thumb screws both for the top panel that just slides in the back with these notches that are very easy to install back. You don't have to kind of fight them. That's it. And the same thing for the bottom foot. It's just one single thumb screw at the back over here. And it's captive. It stays with the panel, and you slide out bottom feet basically the same way you do for the top panel. Both of our side panels are magnetic with really strong magnets and little notches at the bottom to catch within the frame, so they're really easy to reinstall. But also the magnet is strong enough that actually requires not just one finger to remove, but a good grip in order to get this off. Let me do the same thing for the other side, and look at this. For the front panel, so we do have to remove, first of all, this additional piece at the top that can be replaced as a screen. We'll do that later, like this. And our front panel with the I/O is also toolless. Just slides at the top like this. In order to remove it, I mean, you don't necessarily need to touch it, but it just shows you that the entire frame is very user-friendly in terms of disassembly in case you want to mod it or etc. Notice how both side panels are identical and therefore are symmetrical, so you don't have to worry about left and right fitment. We do have a built-in dust filter with a very small notches at the bottom, so there's no way to confuse on how to install it, even though it is also magnetic, but the little notches inside the side panel just help you align it properly. Here we have that fine performance mesh filter that is great for airflow and really good for catching dust at the same time. The removable top panel follows the exact same structure when it comes to the built-in dust filter that is easily removable, has nice rigidity on the frame, that same fine performance mesh. It also has the little notches on the frame that allows you to easily align it back inside there, so you don't need a manual to figure out how to install the dust filter back, with a small notch that faces the front in case you just need extra clarity. I love this implementation. Once all of our exterior panels are removed, so you can easily remove the top fan bracket, just 4 screws, and it's installed from the top, which means installation of your radiator or set of fans is very simple, and it can house a 280mm radiator or dual 140mm fans. So easily removable from the top, install your cooling hardware and place it back from the top inside the case. Now, the thing is we don't have a movable spine on the inside, which is, I guess, kind of unfortunate because that's kind of the trend with ITX enclosures these days. But fortunately, we have an entire removable GPU section, especially for your PCIe bracket. So that makes installation of your graphics card back in here really, really simple. So 5 screws later, what we have here is this removable piece at the back. That means that you can install your graphics card onto our PCIe bracket and slide the graphics card either from the back or from the side, avoiding needing to fight the frame itself. And this installation with a fairly large graphics card made it really, really simple. One of my main concerns about the interior is actually this spine, because it's only supported by the front and the back. It's fairly flexible. Nothing to be concerned about, but you also have to be careful not to completely bend it, let's say out of place. In my hydrangea copy, actually had the motherboard tray kind of bent in slightly towards the power supply section. I'm not sure why, maybe because of the accessory box and something got kind of bent, but something to know for sure. We have one more dust filter on the inside, right behind the GPU, easily removable, that really good performance mesh, just in case any airflow gets sucked in behind the GPU. It's there to protect it. To finish our GPU installation, we do have a Gen 4 riser cable that you can simply pre-install, and now we can mount the GPU onto our PCIe bracket and simply lower the GPU into the frame. And the fact that we have nothing in the back here means you can slide in graphics cards that fit within this space, which is nice and easy, or you can simply lower it from the top, whatever is kind of preferable for your GPU size. Boom. And then we can put the 5 screws back over here so that everything in the back is secured. And we also have this very handy, not GPU support bracket, but a GPU clamp bracket instead. I have not yet seen a GPU clamp system on an ITX enclosure, but it's actually brilliant because most graphics cards that are large will be perfectly secured by the PCIe area, but they'll be kind of like very loose around the back of the graphics card. And this way, it is completely locked in this position. It's awesome. Here's a better view from below on how this whole plastic bracket system works. So first of all, we do have a full length adjustment on where you want the clamp to be, depending on the graphics card length. We also have this little notch in the frame that allows you to completely take this thing out if you don't need it. And for example, here I'm happy with this. And we also have 3 little positions on this bracket where you can install the clamp itself. There's also a GPU thickness requirement for this clamp system between 48 to 70 millimeters. Otherwise, you don't really need this whole system. And finally, storage is pretty clever. So you can utilize this slot over here if your GPU length allows it. And we have 2 identical holes on the opposite side without interfering with any of your hardware because it's tucked away from your power supply, easy to route, so you can safely do a single 2.5-inch drive, but then your second one will depend on your GPU. As for cooling, I wanted to see how those side panels and the top panel allow the case to breathe, and to my surprise, there's absolutely no difference in temperatures without any panels versus your stock case configuration, which is a really, really good thing. The only thing to keep in mind with regards to cooling is whether or not to set the top fans as intake or exhaust. Thermaltake recommends you set them to intake, and that's what I would do as well, just to have a good balance between good CPU temperature, because we have fresh air delivery for our radiator, and also it's gonna make the GPU slightly hotter because we're not exhausting as much naturally, but the difference between the top exhaust versus top intake on the GPU side is only a few degrees hotter with the top intake, but the CPU temperatures are much, much better. Also important to note is that the top panel can be installed in reverse, so like the mounting holes align, and it's just a matter for 120mm mounts, whether or not you want a more balanced approach for airflow, sharing the airflow between the middle spine, between the GPU chamber and the motherboard area, or in more of this configuration where more fan is overlapping with our motherboard area. Also, let's see how this LCD screen accessory kit complements the TR100, if it complements it at all. The case even comes with a color-matched plastic bracket onto which you install the LCD. Let's do it and see if it looks good. I mean, the gap is pretty ginormous. It could be smaller between the screen and the panel. I do appreciate the 90-degree connector, although it is still micro USB and not, something decent like USB-C. But we do have a spare one in case you do have other, Thermaltake accessories, because this screen does run off our USB 2 header. Cable managing all this is going to be a pain. And you know, first impressions, it doesn't look that bad. I wish the actual screen body could be replaced to match the color of the enclosure, because this is, I mean, sticks out too much. Of course, it will depend on what you're going to display on the LCD itself, but I wish the LCD borders were way smaller. Cable management is my least favorite thing to do, but here it was actually not that bad at all. The only thing that really bothers me are all the connections on the fan side with the RGB, with the extensions for the 4-pin connections. And so that can be easily cleaned up. And otherwise, everything is very decent. And because we have those strong magnetic side panels, even though we have this tube that kind of extends and wants to come out of the case, the magnets are strong enough to hold everything in place without it opening back up. And when powered on, I like the concept of displaying certain hardware information that might be useful, but the viewing angle from the top especially are horrible. Like, you can't even see the bar that's supposed to be down there. I really do hope Thermaltake continues with these screen additions, because they are really cool accessories for your enclosure, but make it OLED, make it USB-C, make it prettier and not with such massive bezels. Although I don't mind how it looks with the TR100, to be honest, just because it gives the case a bit more of that analog vibe with like a 3.5-inch floppy disk or something, you know? Now, believe it or not, one of the poorest design decisions when it comes to this entire TR100 is this power LED. It is so bright, not only on the exterior, like it's blinding me right now, but it has so much spill on the inside that I don't even think I need my orange LED on the air cooler and the fans. This definitely was a mistake, and I am going to find a way to tape it because it just ruins the whole case. Seriously, the TR100 feels like such a breath of fresh air. Everything from the assembly point and the feature set feels refined. It feels like it was designed exactly for this purpose, including like this space at the bottom to access your power supply in case you forgot to turn it on. You don't have to remove anything, like it's right there and accessible. For the price of $129, regardless of the color model you choose, it just feels right. The I/O at the front is also pretty loaded, aside from the blindingly stupid blue LED, and aside that, you know, it is kind of crammed in. I wish that we had a little bit more spacing between the USBs and the USB-C especially, but otherwise, it's an absolutely solid SFF enclosure that you should consider. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you in the next video.